Kumlen and Abalat Gemara today, which is Monday. We're up to Daf Tzadik Zayin, and we're actually up to towards the bottom of the page by the two dots, about 5 lines from the bottom of the page. So the Gemara says, and we're talking about, the ratio of wine and water and so on. And we talked about if the wine has started to go off, what the status is, and and we generally said as a rule that the wine, if the wine itself is off, it takes about 3 days. It's a process. First, the smell goes off, it's vinegary, and then the wine itself. Sounds like the way Rashbam learns another shame, but that's the fact how it goes. Interesting that Shulchan Aruch, it brings the case, which is exactly the opposite. What's the din? If the wine itself, if the smell is like wine, but the wine itself is vinegary. And interesting now, and that we say definitely is not wine, but interesting now, it seems that's not a mitzvah, that it's really shaykh to happen. Anyway, says the Gemara. So the Bach explains that the Torah is just giving the two opposites, two scenarios. But nevertheless, from Gemara, it sounds like it's not a realistic scenario, that it should smell like wine and it should taste like vinegar. But the bottom of the page. Now we're going to learn an interesting halacha, which if you would ask anybody, where would you learn? There's a whole Simon Shulchan Aruch Reish Ayin Beis. Where would you learn the laws of Kiddush? What kind of wine you could use for Kiddush? You would say probably some Sechta Shabbos or an Arbi Psachim. But no one's going to tell you it's in Bava Basra, which is exactly where it is. It's an amazing, and that is why, as Tesa says in Christmas, you have to go through the whole Shas. If you want to get a picture of every single Inyan, all the way around. You never get a full picture in one particular Masechta. I think I once told you a story. The Rambam had a regret. He didn't write Marim Akamis, and he writes in his letter that he was asked once, I think it was Chachmei Chelm or Chachmei Lunil, he was asked where the Makkah was for a certain din in Hilchos Reitzeach. So he told him, obviously, it's in the Sanhedrin. I wrote to him a while later. We went through the whole Sanhedrin, all of us, a number of times. We can't find it. So then the Rambam said, maybe it's in Makkos. Came back to him, can't find it. He started going to every one of the Babas. Went through like 6 or 7 Masechtas. Finally, the Rambam wrote to them a letter. He found it in the end of Yevamos. And the Gemara had a question and an answer, and that's where he gleaned it from, that answer, that particular halacha. And then the Rambam says he feels that maybe he should have written down the Mara Mekaimis for himself as well as for everybody else. So here we have a law. You don't make kiddush. You could only those wines. First of all, it has to be wine you make a very pregafen. For example, if it tastes like vinegar, you don't make very pregafen, nor can you use it for kiddush. But the rule is a wine that can be used for wine libations by karbonis, the same wine you can use for Kiddush. Now, what in the world is the connection between the two? So I can't remember who says this. But the reason why Shabbos actually we make Kiddush on wine is because it says, Ein Shira El Yayin. Kiddush is like a song. And that is what Ein Shira El Yayin. And therefore, just like by Yain Esach as well, by Mikdash, they sing songs by the Karbonis. So therefore, there's an association between the two. So Ein Shira Yain, and therefore can only use wine as kosher with Bech. Now, there's 2 ways of learning Pshat, and therefore in Halacha in Simon Yain Beis, there's an argument going right through. Is it like a Gzeis HaKosov, or the Chacham just said this is how it is? If it's not kosher, I don't care why it's not kosher from the Mizbech. If it's not kosher to be used in the Mizbech, nor can you use it for Kiddush. Or is it, if the reason why it doesn't qualify to be used in the Mizbech is because it's not dignified enough, it's not respectful enough, then so too for Kiddush Shabbos, you shouldn't use it. But if there's another reason why you don't use it on the Mizbech, nothing to do with being tasty or good quality, it's because a certain halacha that's extraneous to these concepts, you're not allowed to use it, then for Kiddush you can, as we'll talk about as we go through. Only if it's wine, what are you trying to exclude? The Gemara goes through a number of cases we're trying to exclude. The one case the Gemara does not talk about trying to exclude is cooked wine. Now, cooked wine cannot be used in the Mizbech. It has to be in its raw state. So because of that, there's a big machlekes of shaynim if you can use the ayim avushal. Until very recently, all the wine that we use had was only yain mevushel, cooked wine, boiled wine, and so what do you call it? So the yain mevushel, now those are shaynim who hold like the Rambam that you cannot make kiddush on yain mevushel, but since you cannot use it for the mizbeach, can't use it for wine kiddush because they take it literally. Whatever's there. Others say that yain mevushel could taste better than not mevushel. In fact, some of the shaynim say it definitely tastes better than not. But today we think the other way around. But or at least our wine is different. But regardless, they say the reason why you cannot use yain mevushel is a pasuk that has to be in its raw state. That has nothing to do with kiddush, and you could use it. And the fact that our Gemara doesn't talk about yain mevushel to say, well, maybe that's what coming to exclude, to tell you that don't use yain mevushel. Maybe, but there's a Shami that counts as that openly says you could use yain mevushel, and therefore we could. Today we say we could use yain mevushel, no problem, especially the quality is all right. Others say that our yain is not even yain mevushel. Sorry. Come to think of it, we actually are up to high in the page. Let's get sorry. Keep that thought, everything we just said right now, and let's go to higher up the page. We're up to Tana Rabbanan, by 8 lines from the top of the page. Sorry for that. Tana Rabbanan, Shmorim Shel Truma. We're talking about sediment, and we discussed yesterday about sediment. You know, if you put water in there, what's the din? If it has a din in the status of wine or of kiddush, we had a machlekes, the acherim and the tanakama, and then we had Rabba who explained that machlekes. Shmorim Shel Truma. So if you have, let's say, these lees, the leftover after the grapes, after the press, sitting there, and there's water there, the shmorim are from truma. What is the status of this water, of this wine? What is it? So the rabbanon amachmer. It's only with the rabbanon now. So rishain v'sheni, if it's, let's say, the first batch of water you put in there on the shmorim, and the second batch of water you put on the shmorim, we'll say it has some taste of the shmorim. Therefore, rabbanon will be machmer, treated like this truma. And it's awesome for anybody else. And shlishi, but shlishi is mutter. By then already, it's so dissipated, the amount of wine and the flavor, it's nothing. It's really water. So Rabbanan decided, now remember, Trum is Ma'atayra, so we're very machmer. But shlishi is mutter. Rab Meir says, we're talking about over here that you found the exact same amount of water you put in is what you took out. If you put in 3 cups, it came out 4 cups, that's mamish truma. It's not midrabanan. We said before that it's really wine. We're talking about over here a case, you put in 3 cups, 3.5 cups, we said before, is an argument about chayrim and the chachamim. We're talking about you put in 3 cups of water and you extracted 3 cups of water. So over here, as far as we yesterday, Rabbi said everyone agrees it's not really wine, it's mainly water. Even if a little bit of his wine, it's not enough, it's negligible, a sixth. But over here, by Truma, the Rabbanon decided to be machmir, that first, the second cups of that water you took out is wine. It's the 3rd cup that is mutter. And Rameir says, Av shlishi b'neiset. Rameir says, even the 3rd time around, if still you can taste some wine there, we'll treat it like Truma. B'shal meiser. What about of meiser? We're talking about meiser sheni now. Do you have to take it with you to the shalaim? You know, you had these shemorim, these leaves from meiser sheni. You put some water in there. Do you have to go all the way to Yerushalayim or not? So we shall meiser. If it's meiser sheni, what is it in the sediment? So if it's rishon, the first cup of water you put there, over here it's less machmer because you're allowed to eat it, just you have to eat it in shalayim. So it's only the first. We're talking about again. You put it in a cup and you pulled out a cup. So whatever you put in, you took out. So the first cup it's aser. We're going to say that wow, the bona machmer will treat it like meiser sheni. You have to eat it in shalayim. We're not talking about meiser rishon because everyone can eat that. It's not an issue. Sheni. Mutter. But the second cup of water, we're going to be lenient already. You can eat it. May says, Av Sheni ben Azatar. May says, always one step above. He says, even the second cup, if it tastes like wine, you should treat it like Maisa Sheni and eat it Yerushalayim. What about Hegdish? What about Hegdish? If these Shmorim were made up from Hegdish, then Shlishi also, we're going to be much more stringent that even the 3rd cup, we're going to treat it like Hegdish, it's forbidden, and the Revi Mutter, and the 4th cup is Mutter. Rab Meir says, Av Revi ben Noisin Tam. Rab Meir says that no, we're going to be machmer, that even the 4th cup is also forbidden. Says the Gemara, you're telling me that okay, it's stricter than the other ones, but still there's a time when it becomes permitted. After 3 cups, after 4 cups, after that we say Even if it tastes like wine, there's nothing there, and right, it's not considered hegdish. So that's a question. Shall hegdish if the mishmar hegdish la'olamas, it's usher forever. And there it says v'shal meiser, and when it comes to meiser la'olamutla. So I have a question on both. Kasha hegdish hegdish. You said hegdish after the third cup is permitted. Here it says la'olam usher. Kasha meiser meiser. You said meiser the first cup is forbidden. Here it says it's permitted. Says the Gemara hegdish or hegdish like kasha. Kan big dushas haguf. Here we're talking about there's two kinds of donating to Hegdish, consecrating. One is Kedushas Haguf, where the animal itself becomes Kodesh, the animal itself becomes holy, which is far stricter. Then you have Kedushas Damim, things that cannot be put on the Mizbech. So it's the value of it that you're donating towards the Beis HaMikdash, the maintenance of the Beis HaMikdash. The Beis HaMikdash sells it, the money they use it to whatever, to support the walls or whatever they need in the Beis HaMikdash. That's called Kedushas Damim. So when it comes to Kedushas Haguf, which is so strict, it's forever. If the Shmar Kedushas Haguf, it's forever also. When it comes to Kedushas Damim, then if there's Kedushas Adamim, excuse me, then it's limited to 3 times or 4 times. There is a problem that the Rishonim have, because we have a rule that anything that is suitable to be used for the Mizbeach cannot be donated to Bedek Habayis. So if we're talking about wine, and all wine can be used for Mizbeach as Menachos, as Yain or the Sachim, to libations, how can there be Kedushas Damim? So someone is able to talk about wine that's not really suitable, like some of these wines that are disqualified for using Mizbeach, so therefore that's what we're talking about. Others want to say, in Machadish, well, we say that anything suitable Mizbeach, and if you make Kedushas Damim, it should be for Mizbeach, it doesn't mean that it automatically becomes consecrated Kedushas Guf. It means that it still goes to the Beis HaMikdash for maintenance, but they are supposed to sell it for something to be used on Mizbeach. Because it's like, in other words, a big chiddush. There's like 2. This was another Rishonim said. It's like 2 kedushas fall on this animal. One that you made and one that halacha makes. You made a kedusha damim, and that's effective. And halacha steps in and says, "Hey, 1 second. Since it's suitable for mizbeach, it should be kedusha guf." So they're both happening at the same time. So therefore, bedek habayis is limited to use it only for the mizbeach. Okay. Meiser. What about Meiser? How come one place said the first cup is you have to treat it like Meiser Sheni and go to the Shleim, the other one says it's permitted? Also not a problem. Can the Meiser Vadi, if it's definitely Meiser was strict, the first cup, you should treat it like Meiser Sheni. Can the Meiser Demai? Demai is where you buy something from Amoritz, and we know that the Roiv Amaratzim Asnein, the vast majority do give Meiser anyway. It's only a Chumrah Midirabbanan, and because it's only a Chumrah Midirabbanan, therefore we're going to say that if it's water and leaves, nothing. Just like we say this rule regarding Yisurin, the first cup, second cup, and all that. We know that when you want to prepare something, when food becomes tummy, comes in contact with the sheretz or something, before you do that, it has to be prepared. How is it prepared? By becoming wet from one of the 7 different liquids that there are: water, wine, blood, dew, milk, 7 different liquids. And so the same rules that apply regarding, we just said, regarding, regarding Isurin, whether it's Truma has a status of Truma or not, the same thing applies regarding Hechsher. In other words, the water that's sat with the sediment, are we going to treat this like water or we're going to treat this like wine? So the Gemara is going to ask, I don't understand what's the difference. Since there are 7 different liquids, whether you want to confer upon this water the status of wine, or whether you say the water is water, if it lands on food, it prepares it. It prepares it for to be makabel tumah. What's the difference if it's wine or water? What are you saying? Just like here, it's considered wine. Here, it's considered wine. So you want to the questions. What are you talking about? If it's water, it prepares the food, and so what's the difference? We need it. It's talking about that it was rainwater. It wasn't water from a river. See, it was rainwater direct. Now, interesting that Rashbam makes a chiddush over here, which Taisus and Hashem disagree with, and that is he says there's a difference between water and all other liquids. We learned in Bava Basra Daf, it says in the pasuk kiyutan, we read it kiyitain. Or the other way around, it says kiyitain, we read it kiyutan. Why? That's to teach us. Yite means that you deliberately, consciously put the water there. You wanted the water to be there. Kiyuta means it happened by itself. So which one is it? So we say yutan dumidikhyite, that even if it happened by itself, but if after you know that or you knew that it's going to happen and you were happy that it happens, it's good enough. So, but if you did not know that this is happening, it does not become mukhshel kabel tumah. It has to be at least similar to Yite. Says the Rashbam, that's only limited to water. All the other liquids, wine, milk, blood, honey, if it falls on the food, even though you were not aware that the wine was there and tipped over and fell on the food, it is machshir the kabel tumah. So there's a difference we need to know. Is this water has a status of water or it has a status of wine? Taisa disagrees, and Taisa wants to say that make shamim is different because make shamim is not even considered water unless you want it. Make shamim needs you to want it to not only to be sure that you're doing chiyitain, but also to transform it and make it a liquid. Says the Gemara. So in a case where it fell in the water on its own, when the rain fell into the shmar. If the rain fell into the sediment, so therefore by truma, the first cup you take out of the second cup you take out of the, and so on and so forth, is considered truma, and it's considered wine. But the third cup is water. Okay, so the Gemara, yeah. So what? And if it's water, since you had no idea that it was happening because the water came down by itself, it's not even like kiyitain. So if it's water, and then you pour it on, it falls on food, or you pour it on food, it's not machshel kabel tumah. But if it's wine, then so even though it happened by itself, it's machshel kabel tumah. I don't understand. I still don't understand why. Because you just poured it. Who cares when it landed? When you poured it, you showed that you're happy that this water came down into the sediment. The moment you took that water, okay, it landed, the rainwater landed in this pot that had these leaves. But once you took that water in a cup, you put a cup in there, you took the water, and that means you showed us you're happy that the water is there. So back to the case of what's the difference? Water, wine, it's all the same thing. You're happy. You know what we're talking about over here? That it all happened by itself. The keyboard, what's the question? Sorry. The keyboard, the kanogid, we're talking about over here is that a potter came along and he took the water out. You didn't take the potter drank. So you did not show at all that you're happy with the water there. So if it's wine, who cares if you're happy or not happy? But if it's water, then we need to know that you're happy. It says the potter is the one that used the water up, not you. So therefore, you haven't shown anywhere that you're happy with this water. Says the Gemara. Okay, this is back to what we learned before about Kiddush. We know we're coming to exclude wine that didn't have a chance to ferment. You just squeeze the wine, landed in the barrel. Now we know if you want alcohol, you need it to allow it to ferment. 40 days, we say you need to allow it to ferment. And yain and the mizbeach, you cannot use this kind of wine because it says sheikher, and it says that it has to be wine, alcoholic, and therefore you can't use it for Kiddush either. Says the Gemara, about Tanya Yain Megita Yavit by Mizbech, it says Yain Megita shouldn't bring, but the AV kosher, but the Evid, if you did Mizbech, is kosher. If something is kosher on the Mizbech, but the Evid, truly for Kiddush, even the Chatzchila, you should be able to. But keeping him heavy kosher, not if the Chatzchila, not me. So by Kiddush, we're not going to be so strict. The whole thing is a Chumrah anyway. So something which is, but the Evid at least kosher by Mizbech, should be the Chatzchila kosher by Kiddush. So the Gemara, Rava said, a person can squeeze a cluster of grapes on Friday afternoon, with obviously Shabbos you can't, and make Kiddush. I didn't ferment at all, it's grape juice. Yet you can make Kiddush on it. Well, some want to say the Kiddush Rava is that the Gemara says in Brachas, that someone could daven early on Friday, and you can also make Kiddush early on Friday. And that's a chiddush because when you're bringing in Shabbos before Shabbos, faced with Shabbos, is a mahatayda or is a midrabanon, right? And even if mahatayda is it on the person or is it on the day, can you really make kiddush then? So the Taz, for example, rules that even if you eat a meal Friday afternoon before Shabbos comes in, you must eat a kazayas of bread on Shabbos itself because it says 3 times hayoim. You have to have it on Shabbos itself. What about kiddush? So he says over here, and the Gemara says that Rav used to daven early and make Kiddush. So we learn from here, and that's what. And the Rashba there has a discussion, if I remember correctly, Brachas, whether the Gemara means he also make Kiddush right after davening, or based on that ma'ativ, he make Kiddush later on time, because Kiddush is Ma'atoida. Now remember, the Rambam doesn't hold up the whole idea of Tzos Shabbos, and yet the Rambam says that you can make Kiddush before Shabbos does Yesh Kaddish, and so it seems that Kiddush that Kiddush is on the contrary. The whole idea of Kiddush is to make Shabbos holy. If it's already Shabbos, it already became, and we know the Gemara says in Psachim like Shabbos is Mekatsha V'Kaima, that Shabbos becomes holy on its own. So a half an hour after Shabbos came in, an hour after came in, you're going to make it holy? Make what holy? Already whole became holy. So Faket, there's a Maila. This is how we understand. Some understand the Rambam. There's a Maila making Kiddush before Shabbos, because then you're actually making the Shabbos holy, doing exactly what the mitzvah is, to make Shabbos holy. Anyway, so what the Rabbi's Chiddush here is that you can squeeze the grapes, and the Rashba's Chakira, whether you based on the Mari, we make Kiddush Bismani or not, that's the point. The Rabbi is exactly saying that. Squeeze it out, Abbas is Friday afternoon, and you can make Kiddush straight away. Well, there is a machlekes if you can make Kiddush Friday afternoon if you didn't daven Ma'ariv. Can you be Makabel Shabbos with Kiddush without a Ma'ariv? Or the whole idea that most of the Rav, Tzolish Shal Shabbos be'erev Shabbos, and he's make Kiddush is when can you make Kiddush? Only if you're ready to daven Ma'ariv. Now, Rebbe Klinish says that you can make Kiddush without Ma'ariv, and Kiddush without Ma'ariv brings in Shabbos, and you can do that. But others, if I remember correctly, Lagun hold that no, you have to have Ma'ariv first before you make Kiddush. Ella. So what's it coming to exclude? It can't be excluding that. So what's excluding? To take wine from the top of the barrel where you might have pieces floating around, or on the very bottom where you have the sediment, that you shouldn't use on the mizbeach. You shouldn't use that for Kiddush. So what are you talking about? It says you shouldn't do the chatchila, but maybe kosher did, but the evidence kosher. So Elo, you know what comes to mind? Yayin kushi is coming to exclude black wine. So it's like really black. Which we have, like, I don't know, Malaga is like really black wine, is it red? You have probably very heavy black wine, and a wine called Bayrik. Bayrik is white, but it's an inferior kind of white. And Hilistein is extremely sweet wine, either because and the Rashbam adds, and also has very little alcohol, which I'm not sure exactly what the point of that is. We just said you can use grape juice; it has zero alcohol. And here it says that the Rambam says cholosh. Cholosh would mean very little alcohol. What's it mean? Okay, so then shall martif, wine from a martif. Now, generally in a martif, you might have. We said before, you always have sour wine that's coming sour as well. You can use any wine in a martif. You don't have to be picky. And shall tzmukim, you can use raisin wine. And the machleki by raisin wine, we're talking about actually squeezing the wine out of the raisins, or we're talking about putting water where the raisins are, as long as there's some juice in the raisins left. And anyway, so what do we learn from here? But the avid, all of these are kosher for the. Sorry. So we're saying that's what it's coming to include. You cannot use any of these wines. So here we see white wine at the moment for Kiddush. Says what are you talking about? For Tanya, kosher. They're all good with the evidence. So they're all good with the evidence. You can use for Kiddush chatchila. They're coming to exclude Lamute Yayim Kaisim. This is the wine we said before that you sell in the store because it does not have a long shelf life. And Mazug, if you diluted the wine, and because on the Mizbeach, you cannot use diluted wine. Mizbeach, you could only use raw wine. So if you diluted the wine, even though Rabbi said before that's the only way to drink it, but if you dilute the wine, you cannot use it for Kiddush, maybe. And Megula. We know that Yayin Megula, wine that was left open, you shouldn't use for Kiddush. You shouldn't use for Kiddush because snakes isn't eaten. Even though the Gzeira has been removed, today you're allowed to drink water that was left overnight. We're not worried about snakes. Nevertheless, it's not appropriate to use it. Vishal Shmorim, and the wine that we said before, that you let it sit the water in the Shmorim, and if it has a bad smell, not a vinegary smell, it's a bad smell because it's sitting inside a pot. The time may be possible. These are all possible for the Vech if we cannot use for Kiddush either. Says the Gemara. So lemute mai. So let's go through each one. You want to exclude lemute kaisim. You want to exclude the wine that is a little bit off. But we just learned that that's the argument of Rabbi Yechanan and Rabbi Shua Levi, whether you make a berper gafan and a shakum. Ilamute mazug, if you want to tell me to mimayit mazug if it's diluted, but we learned before it's a good thing to dilute. Iluya aluya fakert. When it comes to drinking, Mizbeach has its own dinner. When it comes to drinking, diluted wine is much better. It's drinkable. The Chachamim are moeded to Rabbi Lezer. They argue regarding nisach when you pour wine in the Mizbeach, whether you're allowed to dilute. But they all agree, because when it comes to the cup of benching, she'ein mevarchin love. You don't make a bracha. You have to make it drinkable. You have to adjust. The Rashbam says he has no idea which machlekes Rabbi Chanina and where this machlekes is, but nevertheless, that's the idea. So what's it coming to exclude? It can't be coming to exclude dilution because we need you to dilute the wine as long as it'll take the wine. Ilamute, a ratio 1 to 3. Ilamute megula, if to come to negate legula sakani, that's dangerous. Ilamute, so of course you're not allowed to, and you're not allowed to drink it b'chal. Forget about kiddush. Ilamute, so shmorim, hey, what are you talking about? Idra matlasi, you put in 3 cups, vasabah, 4 cups came out. Chanamal, you said it was wine. Either matlasa palga, if you put in 3 cups, 3.5 cups came out. Isn't that the argument of Achayim? Pluked about Achayim. Ella, you know what's coming to exclude? Sherei chayra. If it has a bad odor, and the odor is from the pot that it sat in, then you're not allowed to use it for kiddush, which is actually the halacha. In Shalach. We're coming to exclude megula. The afagav, the ovri, even though you're allowed to drink it. When? If you put it through a sieve. Like Ramechemi says, when it comes to kiddush, would you offer this to an officer? And would he be desirable? You think he'll curry your favor after that? He'll be upset. This is a present. So when it comes to kiddush, it's a kid. So it seems Pashup Pshat the Gemara is that the only criteria is it if the reason why it's possible is because it's not dignified, then you shouldn't use it. So far, the only machlekes we had is regarding yaim mavushal. Cook wine, you're allowed to use it. Now we're going to have another machlekes based on this little Gemara here. Boy, Meneh Kana Chamuda Meshashe. Now, Kana, the father of Meshashe, asked Rabbi, Chamar Chivayimal, white wine, what is it did? Now, we already just a little before about Boyek. So some want to say that he didn't hear the Brisa. Others want to say that it's 2 different kinds of white wine. The Rashbam says we're not talking about Kiddush here, because by Kiddush there's nothing wrong with white wine. We're talking here about for the Mizbeach, if you're allowed to use white wine. I'll tell you, don't look too much at wine because if it's red wine is very strong and it'll intoxicate you. So we see that red wine is more choshev than white wine. So when it comes to the Rashbam said this is limited only to the Mizbeach. When it comes to Kiddush, there's no difference red wine or white wine. I want to say there's different shades of white. There's different shades of white wine and so on. In Shalach itself, there's a big machlekes if you can make kiddush and white wine. The Ramban holds you not make kiddush and white wine. We hold you allowed to make kiddush and white wine. Shalach concludes as long as the white wine is equal to red wine. When it comes to Pesach, we say the white wine has to be superior to the red wine. But on Shabbos, as long as they're equal. If I remember correctly, there's a Tzais HaShulchan of Chaim Noah who writes that the Gemara is talking about white wine. He's Cleveland money. We're talking about inferior. It's inferior wine. He says that the white wine we have today is not white wine because the grapes are actually the same grapes you make red wine. It depends what part of the grapes you're using. It depends how you process it. And therefore he says that most white wines. And therefore he says that our white wine today is really red wine. And when they want to talk about white wine and the Rishonim, they're talking about an inferior grape or an inferior kind of a wine. Interesting. Taking about it further. Kankanim Bishar, the Mishnah said if you buy Kankanim in a place called Sharon, you allow only up to 10 barrels that are not effective. What do you mean? You don't want even 1 barrel not effective. I'm buying 100 barrels. I want 100 good barrels. I can put wine in there. That you want to turn the picture? No, some good photos. We're talking about you anticipate 10 barrels that are sort of a bit broken, but were patched up. So they work, they're effective, but they won't have a long shelf life as long as a brand new one. Okay, we'll pause for 1 minute.